This is TWiT.
So as we careen into the end of the year, I've been trying to decide whether what's happened with Windows this year is worse or better or not as bad maybe as what's happened with Xbox. Right now it's kind of a toss-up. But every year at this time, at this month, Satya Nadella writes a letter to shareholders. And it's mostly about momentum and a little bit about hinting about maybe where things are going to go in the future. So when I saw that, I said, let me just see what he had to say about gaming and Xbox. And, not that much, as it turns out. But he did kind of encapsulate the Xbox strategy today in a single sentence, which is, we are bringing great games to more people on more devices. Now, if that were true, I guess I'd be really excited about it. But it's fair to say that Activision Blizzard was the culmination of a game studio buying spree, also the apex of that, I would say. And now they have that in place. They've got the subscription services, which makes Xbox make sense within, the Microsoft of today. I'm sure there's AI stuff coming. Don't worry, we're not going to forget about Xbox. Richard has talked about this notion of using AI to create gaming environments and storylines and everything, right? It's going to be kind of an interesting thing. He talks about having 20 franchises now between Activision Blizzard and stuff that Microsoft already owned that have generated over $1 billion in lifetime revenue, right? Halo, Gears of War, Diablo, Warcraft, Elder Scroll. I think Call of Duty makes $1 billion every 15 seconds, so that's probably why I didn't make the list. But also Candy Crush on mobile, right? So this kind of made me think, people who love Xbox fans did not anticipate this year, it's fair to say. But what's the goal? Like, what's the point? Like, what are we waiting on here? Like, what's the thing that's going to happen? Like, where are they going with this, right? When you say, as the console maker, that you're going to bring more games to more people on more devices, you're explicitly or implicitly saying that console is not the primary platform, the primary platform anymore. Although they have bragged about this next gen thing coming down the pike that's going to blow all our minds and everything. And I have my suspicions that this thing might be ARM based if they can get it there, right? That's part of it. Brad has speculated that they might farm out Xbox hardware to third parties like they do with PCs, right? That you might have, some number of PC or hardware makers that will manufacture Xbox consoles in the future. Maybe some of them will be mobile in nature, like Steam Deck. Cloud gaming, right? Which is limited right now to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which is $20 a month. It's very expensive. Is not necessarily the greatest experience, although I'm actually going to talk about that in a minute as well. I'm surprised there isn't a standalone Game Pass SKU, right? So I guess, we can only speculate. I guess that's sort of, I should add too, I'm sorry, I forgot the other piece of the puzzle here is mobile. They've talked explicitly about bringing a mobile game store of some kind, both to Apple's and Google's mobile platforms. Now, the Google one has been pushed back because of the successful attempt to stall that by appealing, which makes sense. And of course, the Apple stuff will probably happen, and we'll see what that looks like in the EU only, although I think eventually those things all kind of follow along together. Does Xbox make more native mobile games? Is it going to be all cloud gaming where they bring console class games to it like a streaming type thing? I don't know. But at the beginning of this year, I was really excited about Xbox. And at the end of the year, I'm just trying to hold it together,
Yeah.
And
not much has happened. Like, I don't know that I compare Windows and Xbox fairly there. Windows has actually done a real heavy lift. Get 24H2 out the door.
Yep.
You've almost undermined its value by calling it a service pack. It was a major update to the OS.
I guess I mean it from sort of a chaos perspective. In other words, like you head into this year, and for Windows, this year is really kind of an October to October thing. Mm-hmm. You think you've got a handle on what we're doing, and then this year happens. You're like, I guess not.
No, and that's the whole thing. Is this time last year, it's like we've had 6 months of fighting over this acquisition. That Sony did their very best to make it sound like the world was going to end if it went through. And now it's been a year and really nothing.
Yep.
Not a thing.
I won't remember the judge or the exact case. I think maybe
what you'll remember is that after it happened, nothing happened after.
And that's what one of the, I think it was the judge in the Gamers lawsuit said, he's basically what you just said. A year from now, what's going to happen is you're going to play the game you want to play on the platform you want to play, and nothing will have changed.
Yeah.
So,
well, and of course, I don't even know that that's true because we haven't even seen much in the way of major cross-plat moves. What we've really seen is essentially nothing. I mean, the good news is Blizzard has shipped Diablo. They have shipped updates to World of Warcraft. Like, it sounds like parts of the company are still functioning. But where's a new marquee title? Where's a shuffling of that? Where's releases on other platforms? Like, nothing's happened.
So this is part right. So the final sentence of Satya Nadella's blurb about Xbox and gaming was mentioning that they did bring 4 of their, he called them fan favorite titles, which means not our biggest titles, but Sea of Thieves, etc., to Nintendo Switch and Sony PlayStation for the first time. Yeah. And we will continue to extend our content to new platforms.
So maybe it was a dabbling year, like they're just sort of trying things.
Well, we know the Indiana Jones game that's coming out, I think right at the end of the year, is going to come to PlayStation. There'll be more of this stuff. Okay, fine. I know that upsets some people. Having played Call of Duty for many years and watching it go from, in my case, from being Xbox only online experience to Xbox plus PlayStation online experience to today, Xbox plus PlayStation plus PC plus game streaming, by the way, or cloud gaming as Microsoft calls it. So things change. I mean, I do like the big tent aspect of the Xbox vision. I think it is what makes sense for the brand and for the product line or whatever. I think getting out of hardware would make a ton of sense, even though I know that upsets people.
But that's good. And that's nothing to do with Blizzard per se. I would go back to the Blizzard thing and say it is super normal in an M&A acquisition to be hands off for the first year.
Yeah. And actually, if you look at, aside from the fact that the latest Call of Duty game has come to Game Pass, first time a new major release did, has come to game streaming. These are things Activision wouldn't have done on its own, explicitly said we will never do. This has unrolled. This game just came out Friday, so it's not even been a week. But this has unrolled just like it feels like previous Call of Duty releases, right? If you didn't know Microsoft had a role, if you didn't know they spent $68 billion on this thing, you wouldn't really know anything had changed. And you're right. I think that's the point. They don't want to promote that part of it because why would they? Like, what does that have to do with anyone playing on PlayStation? I don't care about that.
No, and I think it also takes a while to get your hands on the company to actually see how it functions, to get through those mechanisms. Yeah, and then then changes could be happening. Like, I would wonder if first quarter next year is going to be the beginning of shakeup.
I think we're going to see, because we've just seen murmurs of this. They're going to redo the original Halo. Of course they are, right? It's almost certainly going to be on PlayStation, right? It has to be. I mean, and that's going to really upset people, but it has to be, right? It has to be. I think this is not based on anything, but I think they need to bring more of their IP to mobile directly, like not a Halo-like game on mobile, but Halo on mobile, right? Yeah. Actual Halo. And I don't know that there's been no indication that some studio that Activision owned had some secret title that was going to be amazing, or that Microsoft bought them for that reason. But I think part of it was obviously just the inertia and momentum of their successful franchises, the ability to get it in inroad in mobile, and then to use those assets, for lack of a better term, to help them bring their existing IP to mobile or to other platforms as well, right? They're getting that kind of expertise.
And we are just noticing Chocolate Milk there saying console gaming's getting meh. It's like we're due for new hardware, except that there's no justification for new hardware. There are so few games that press against the limits of the current generation consoles because it simply costs too much. So you have to make a multi-billion-dollar title to spend the money it takes to press against the limits of those machines.
One of the things that came out in all that leaked stuff about Xbox about a year ago, 15 months ago, whatever it was this notion that they wanted the next console to be ARM-based.
Yeah.
And if they can pull that off, there is an interesting thing there because it opens up a handful of things. One is obviously a more efficient console. Consoles right now are like nuclear reactors sucking
Yes.
down energy, right? They're horrible. So that would be interesting. I think that Microsoft with their whole developer base can pull off this thing where it benefits Windows as well, specifically Windows and ARM, where developers can create a game for the Xbox platform, if you will, and thus make it easier for those games.
It's also Microsoft. If Uncle Satya rolls it out, he can just simply say, "Everyone, thou shalt all make ARM versions for Windows of all of these games." Get compiling.
But it has to be ready. That's the thing. So we'll see. I think there's a mobile play here too, with which Microsoft has never bitten on, that either literally is a portable Xbox or a you want to say Stream Deck, a Steam Deck type thing, which is actually a PC, obviously.
But you're hinting at the bigger issue here, which is we're at a sea change in game development. We're at the early stages with this next generation of generative AI. But it's just and a new piece of hardware is a 2-year development cycle and a 5-year production commit. You can't make that commitment right now. You need to wait.
That commitment already had to have been made. That is kind of the point.
Yeah. And you've just been disrupted. Like anything you came up with 2 years ago, if they've done that, and maybe they have, you got to check it out.
Well, we don't know. We don't know.
Because it doesn't have an NPU in it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean,
you're talking about a truly contemporary gaming machine. Yes, ARM. Yes, next generation GPU, but also an NPU.
Yes, of course. Yeah. But at the time of the leak, if I remember correctly, that decision to go ARM or not would have already occurred. It's just that we got a leak that was a slice in time from previous to that. So we don't know. I mean, there's been no hint outside of this of what direction that might go or when it could happen, whatever. Other than, Sarah Bond kind of vaguely saying the next one's going to blow your socks off, however she put it.
But there's also a strong case for get out of hardware, put out a reference design. Everybody make these. We'll make games for everything.
They desperately want that, but they also understand that that might be the bridge too far for their user base today, that they have to get there in baby steps. Like in the same way that this Call of Duty release, which I'm going to talk about a little bit, feels like it always did. And it's kind of a proof point. Like, see, we're not going to screw this up. Like it's going to be the thing you always wanted or the thing you wanted again a year later, I guess, because it's literally the same thing every year. We didn't screw it up, right? We did a good job with Mojang and Minecraft. We did a good job with GitHub, we're going to do a good job with this, and kind of make that proof point. And then we can get to the next step, which is going to be this thing, which in my own experience has been very difficult, convincing this fan base whose lives are all based around the console that this life.
It doesn't mean the consoles won't still exist. It's just they'll be sold by Acer and half a dozen other companies, right?
Yeah.
But they'll all run all you want. You'll buy whatever console you want. It has the game you want on it. But what if every console has the game you want on it?
Here's the thing. So if you think about the PC space, how it's been for decades, right? What you get is this range of capabilities and different companies competing with each other and trying to outdo each other in whatever ways, right? And so there are ways you as a volume PC maker can save money on components. There's a way, if you go with AMD, like your laptop gets really good graphics capabilities or whatever it might be. The thing that's kind of unique about ARM that I've noticed this past summer is these laptops are all the same. They're all the same. And they're the same in a good way, right?
Yep.
They all get really good battery life. The performance is incredible. The efficiency is off the charts. The reliability is better. The whole thing is really good. And that speaks to me of what needs to happen and I'm just making this up. Again, it's not based on anything, but this notion that Microsoft could farm out the hardware as they do in the PC space, you almost need that platform to make it work, because otherwise you're just selling them today's devices are based on AMD, by the way, the same thing with PlayStation, actually. You're basically giving them what is in effect, I guess, a reference board or something and saying, well, just
build this.
Your fun around it and do whatever you want. But
and the upside to the way consoles are done is that hardware is several years old, which means that a current generation or next generation ARM set should be able to emulate it at full bore. So you get your game compatibility. You can move forward with contemporary games that way. But the bigger issue to me will be, how do you reduce the team size and still do all of the graphic features, all of the asset creation, so forth? And that's where the generative AI play comes in. That we now can generate a lot more of that content, so that the machines are always pressed to their limits, and you are getting maximum resolution, maximum assets because they're generated on demand.
Yep. And we'll say, all I have is this paragraph of text from Satya Nadella allegedly that doesn't say a lot, but it really got me thinking. We're coming off a pretty tough year.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of this is holding pattern stuff that might
totally
or might not
agree.
be related to
and
ARM/AI waiting.
My friends that are in the gaming industry are all fairly terrified. They've had a bunch of layoffs.
Yeah.
They've had, and more importantly, it's silence. There's not a lot of new games being initiated. And I think it's because we're in the midst of a retooling of how games are made because of generative AI.
Yep. And
you know me, I'm an AI cynic. Like, I push hard on this stuff, but when you don't need precision for games.
Well, you don't have to worry about hallucinations. They're making up stories.
Yeah, it's already a made-up story. You're good.
Yeah, it's already crazy. This will be perfect for Nintendo. It's like a purple mushroom.
But the costs associated with making this content are massive, and you have to make these $100 million plus bets a year before you make $1.
Xbox went from a Celeron x86 to PowerPC back to, I guess, x64 at this time, over 2 gens now. Each platform in sequence powerful enough to emulate the
previous
earlier version. We've just seen, arguably, maybe inarguably, the biggest, one of the biggest accomplishments with this latest Snapdragon X Elite chipset from Qualcomm is its emulation capabilities. It's amazing.
So there's a window here.
Yep. So it seems like it's lining up to me.
That's only taking care of the old things. The question is, can you make a new game that people are going to care about enough to drop $500
as long as it's called Halo,
console?
Richard? Yes,
perhaps, but only I don't
know. Yeah. So again, just there's not a lot of. I want to be clear about. I hope I was clear as I spoke, or as we spoke to, where most of this is speculation. Just wondering, because it doesn't make sense in a way that Microsoft would come out with these console refreshes they are now selling that are, they're fine for what they are, but at a time when Sony is putting out a PS5 Pro, which admittedly is going to sell 17 or 18 units. It's not like it's going to go gangbusters.
No. And I already have friends who bought it. But again, it's a piece of art, right? It's also a holding pattern machine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's current gen. Yep. But, they did, Xbox One was this, an Xbox 360 too, but I would say even more so Xbox One is an example of an Xbox generation where they kept constantly revved on the hardware, and not just for cost reduction, although that's always part of it, going from the original tank to the Xbox One S to the X, with this kind of steady ladder of technical improvements. And, I guess the new one's a little less inefficient.
Yeah.
There's really not a lot going on there.
But none of these decisions were Uncle Satch's. And now that it's Uncle Satch's call, he could easily say, this is a low margin business and we are not going to be in it. Go make an ecosystem that will take that risk. And we now own enough game brands to guarantee a sufficient number of games for the entire ecosystem.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
That's the power they have.
On that note, it is sort of mission accomplished in the sense that they do have a wide body of successful games and game franchises to work on.
They get to pick what consoles succeed. If their game, if that suite of games comes to that console succeeds. If they don't, it doesn't. Not that they would ever not go, but the point being, they now hold gravity over the whole market that way.
Right.
Hey, it's me, Leo Laporte. I hope you've enjoyed this little snippet from Windows Weekly. If you want to see more and want to catch the whole show, you can subscribe in your favorite podcast client or visit our website, twit.tv/WW. And of course, there's links right below me.